The total package, made in the USA, Lex Luger, the man with the $1 million body and the 10-cent promo brain, if we're perfectly honest. The man, the myth, the guy that got away with murder. Miss Elizabeth never got the justice that she should have. Lex knew what he did, listened to the fucking 911 call, and he finished the race, and he fought the good fight. Well, now any other races that he does, he's going to have to do without the use of his legs. You got no use of your legs, Lex Luger. Oh, karma's a real fucking bitch, isn't it? Oh yeah, it's going to be one of those shows, folks. I'm John Recton with my review WWE on A&E Biography, WWE Legends on Lex Luger. Anybody that's even a short-time viewer of the channel, you will know that personally I have never cared for Lex Luger for a variety of reasons. This biography kind of reinforced why. I also don't buy the whole being saved thing. If it helped you become a better person, great. I don't fucking buy into it at all. And oh boy, was I pissed off during some of this. Oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of goddamn fun. Let me know your thoughts on this show in the comments, please. Once we get to that Liz part, things are going to get really, really spicy. As a wrestling fan, it pisses me the fuck off that Liz, who, yes, had her demons, should still be around now. And Lex never got the full comeuppance. Oh, I don't care if his health took a goddamn dive. It was his fucking fault that his health took a goddamn dive because he had such an ego and was doing all this stuff and everything because he knew what he was fucking doing was wrong. Whew. Okay, let's start at the beginning. And when we get to the end, we'll stop. Good old Mad Hatter quote. So, Lex looked like $1 million. He truly did. Like, you take a look at how people looked back then. There were many wrestlers that did put a lot of work into their physiques. I mean, Kerry Von Erich, you look at him, he looked like a fucking Greek god. And promos were not Lex's thing. He was not a natural speaker. He was not a natural promo. He got it later on. He was much better as a heel. And it was just... he was not great to the fans either. He just couldn't be a natural face. Like, none of this was really, really clicking. He went through his self-imposed hell, as the Big Show said. They got some good talking heads for this. I wonder if they should have gotten, if they tried to get Jim Duggan for this. Because Hacksaw Jim Duggan said in a shoot interview, like, you know, a timeline interview, talking about, how Lex got brought up and he doesn't have respect for Lex because of putting his hands on Miss Elizabeth. And Duggan was in WCW at that time and would have known that. And Duggan's a stand-up fucking guy. So yeah, it hurt to hear some people defend Lex here. It really, really fucking hurt. And I'm going to talk about a few of them. So, grew up in Buffalo, New York. His family was very smart into music and athletics. He got into basketball and football. He forged his dad's signature because his dad didn't want him to play football. Got into where he was forming his body, lifting, powerlifting, likely some steroids, not nearly as much as Jim, the Ultimate Warrior Hellwig. By the way, fuck the Ultimate Warrior, I'm glad he's dead. He got a brief shot here because they talked about Lex going to the WWF at the time, even though Warrior was kind of on his way out of the company by the time Lex was arriving as a wrestler. But nevertheless, even they admitted several times that he was self-centered. He admitted he was. I did like the archival footage showing him with that glorious, like 80s mustache and the hair and everything. Well, actually it was 70s because of when he was born, but it was just fucking hilarious watching that shit. Just great. I do like that old archival stuff. That is really neat to see. Mad Peggy is now ex-wife, who was not interviewed at all. I kind of don't fucking blame her. I actually don't know if she's still alive, in all honesty. I hope she is. But at Penn State, boy, you want to talk about a legacy that fell dramatically. Joe Paterno. Maybe you shouldn't have defended Sandusky, you dumb son of a bitch. Hell of a goddamn coaching career, pissed down the drain because he was a fucking pedo defender. So anyway, went to Florida. Competed against Florida State. Ron Simmons. Damn. Only had Ron Simmons there for a little bit. He did talk about how Lex got him into wrestling a little bit after Lex had debuted. He got cut. He played in the CFL. He had like a former coach act as his agent, I believe. And he worked up to the NFL, but he was getting injured a whole lot and went to the USFL. He had, he talked about Memphis. Now, Memphis was a wrestling town, and at this point, this was 84, 85. Memphis wrestling was still seen as a big goddamn deal. They had that trade agreement with Mid-South Wrestling. Even though Memphis didn't get the best deal out of that, Mid-South Wrestling had its best year in 1984, 8.5, 9 million, something like that, with a lot of talent that came from Memphis. Memphis wasn't getting exactly the best deal. They did get the Rock and Roll Express back in the summer of 84, and I'll talk about that in another video, but Memphis Wrestling was pretty hot by that point, even as WWF was exploding and Jim Crockett Promotions was exploding, and Memphis was its own regional territory that had a lot of, a lot of fucking influence. Had some pretty damn good influence, in all honesty. And fans would walk, or, people would walk around, are you a wrestler? No, he was almost indignant. I'm a football player. He trained with Hiro Matsuda. If only Hiro Matsuda had done to Lex what he did to Hogan. He broke his ankle, by the way. And said, get out of here. You're not going to be a wrestler. And Hogan came back, to his credit. I will say that much. And that was late 70s, something like that. But Lex got into wrestling. Debut in Championship Wrestling from Florida. In October of 85, this was months after the untimely, unfortunate death of promoter Eddie Graham, who had committed suicide by, I believe it was a gunshot, if I'm right. I believe his two sons, Mike and I forget the other one, ended their lives the same way. Very, very tragic. It was kind of funny how the name came up with it, and talking about Magnum PI. Luger's a different type of gun, and there's Lex Luthor, so how about we come up with Lex Luthor? They had to come up with that within an hour before the show, and then Percy Pringle was his manager. He had to work with a lot of people that he really, really had to try hard, really, really hard. Percy Pringle, by the way, may be known better to just strictly WWE fans as Paul Bearer. They did have archival footage from 2011. Hard to believe that something from 11 years ago could be considered archival. But nevertheless, he talked about how Lex wasn't very good at first. His matches were not very good. But he looked like $1 million. He rose up the ranks in Championship Wrestling from Florida, but by that point, that promotion was heading down the primrose path, as it were. He was like, he was a champion. I think he was a double champion at one point. I know he was on Battle of the Belts. I believe he was on all the Battle of the Belt cards, at least the last two. And that was a big goddamn... Actually, it was the last two, because the first one was sometime in earlier 85. And Cornette. Jim Cornette, who worked with Lex in Jim Crockett Promotions and even in the SummerSlam 1993 build, has talked about Lex on his podcast with his co-host, and talked about how, Lex looked like $1 million. He looked great. But it was going to take a while for his work to really, really catch up. Now, I will be perfectly honest. You take a look at some of Lex's stuff when he was working with Flair and he was working and holding the U.S. Championship and everything. That stuff when he was a heel was actually pretty goddamn good. He just wasn't a natural face. And Flair wrestled him for an hour. It wasn't very good because Lex was very, very green, as it were. And then we see pieces from the Rise and Fall of WCW. I think this was deleted scene stuff, but Jim Crockett, rest in peace, Jim Crockett, talked about, bringing him in, wanting to make him basically Jim Crockett's version of Hulk Hogan. Here's the difference. Hulk Hogan had charisma. Lex, while he had physical charisma, just didn't connect with the fans. Even though Hogan was a cartoon, he connected with the fans for a number of years. And he worked with the Four Horsemen. That was sometime in 87, if I remember right. I believe he replaced Ole because Ole wasn't necessarily working out all that great. Then you had Tully, you had Arn, you had Flair, J.J. Dillon being the Dean of Students. And Lex was trying to keep up. He rose up quickly, being the U.S. champion. I believe being Nikita Koloff, if I recall correctly. That was a pretty good, series of matches. And then and even though Nikita was never the best in the world, Lex and Nikita complement each other pretty well. At least the matches I've seen. Obviously, not a lot of house show footage exists. And then tried to keep up lifestyle-wise. And then we go to how he was given the first guarantee contract by Jim Crockett. And Lex didn't understand the wrestling business. In fact, his debut match was the first time he had been at a live wrestling show. I mean, whatever. If you don't grow up a fan of something, I mean, I guess that is what it is. But he got $350,000 basically as a guarantee. That's a lot of fucking money in 86, 87, something like that. I think it was around that. $350,000. And it increased over time. Barry Windham talks about people having to work with them, a lot of veterans and everything. That was Barry Windham footage from at least the 2009 Rise and Fall WCW documentary. And Lex just he rubbed people the wrong way. Crockett talked about that. Bischoff talked about that. And then we go to more notes how Sting and him became best friends and everything. Flair saying Luger looked like $1 million, you could draw a lot of money with him, and he ended up liking Lex. Of course, Flair would like somebody that ended up cheating on his wife multiple times and beat his mistress. Of course, Flair would like that. Yeah, you want to hear more shots about Flair or more shots at Flair? Check out my review of Ric Flair's last match. So, they show a bit of footage of a series of matches that he had with Luger and Flair. Great American Bash 1988, Starrcade 88, and they really skipped over some of his best stuff. Much as I'm going to take shots at Lex here, they skipped over some of his best stuff, talking, just almost glossing over the U.S. Championship run. He had a 523-day run, I believe. It was from... it was from just after Wrestle War 89 because Michael Hayes beat him. And then Luger won it 2 weeks later and embarked on the 523-day run. And the only reason it ended when it did is because Stan the Lariat Hansen came in, beat him at Halloween Havoc 90, and dropped it right back at Starrcade 1990. And you have to wonder, what was the goddamn point of making him drop it just to win it back? Also on that horrible red, ring mat carpet that they had. It was just weird for Halloween Havoc 90. Go back and watch Halloween Havoc 1990 if you want to see a match or a show that was just a goddamn mess and the epitome of Jim Herd's fucking booking. Whew, it was weird to see a red ring mat. But anyway, imagine, Lex could have had the goddamn title for almost 2 years before he gave it up. That would have been, that 523 days will never be fucking broken. But nevertheless. Flair, then they kind of glossed over, Will Turner bought the company in 1988. They kept jumping back and forth in the timeline here. It got really, really weird. And then Flair took the big gold belt in July of 91, said, nope, fuck you, Jim Herd, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, he wanted him to cut off his hair, Herd did, and put on an earring, and he wanted Flair to be a gladiator called Spartacus. I love you, Spartacus. She called me Spartacus. If anybody gets that reference, I will be forever grateful. But he takes big gold belt. They had to make another belt last minute. Great American Bash 1991. We want Flair. We want Flair. But they got Barry Windham at that point in his career. And Lex Luger turning heel, aligning with Curtis Hughes and Harley Race. In a steel cage match where literally they were almost as tall as a goddamn cage. It was actually fucking hilarious. I mean, I know they're tall guys, but still... And Luger won. He was the champion. It wasn't a well-received run. It also wasn't a great time in WCW, if we're being perfectly honest. He leaves right after Super Brawl 92 and is going to sit out the last year of his contract. But, maybe he'll come back. He wasn't going to come back. He signs with the World Bodybuilding Federation. He's going to be the guy to pose. He's just going to do this. But since he's under a bodybuilding contract, he can't wrestle, obviously, until his WCW contract is up in late 92, very early 93. I think it was very early. I think it might have been late 92, given the fact he debuted at the Rumble 93. But the Ico Pro thing, Ico Pro, you got to want the Ico Pro. God damn it, that stuff was just... Bret Hart apparently absolutely hated that. More on Bret here in a bit. Motorcycle accident the week of June, in June of 92, basically almost caused him to lose his arm. Near fatal. He was DOA. Sting went with him. And he told Sting, don't let the doctors touch me. Call Dr. James Andrews. Dun, dun, dun. Anybody who knows the name Dr. James Andrews, if you're an athlete, you want to hear it because he will do some really good stuff for you, but you also don't want to hear it if you are a fan of said athlete, because that means it's really bad. Because Dr. James Andrews, one of the most well-respected surgeons out there. I don't think he's doing surgery anymore because he looked like he was about 60 at this time. But nevertheless, hell, maybe he's dead. I don't know. But he was a great surgeon. And then he was put all back together, had a metal plate in his forearm. And he didn't lose a limb. He nearly lost his arm, so he nearly was the opposite of Kerry Von Erich, who lost one of his feet. Right into a parked police car, by the way. So, nevertheless, he's the narcissist, Lex Luger, or narcissist, as Bobby Heenan said. I don't know why that always makes me laugh. Narcissist, I don't know why that's so funny to me. Man, Bobby Heenan really tried hard to sell Luger as the guy and everything. And you have every right to love you and everything. And yes, he never met a mirror he didn't like. He was always in love with his appearance. And he was always pushed as a guy and featured with really, really good money. Got really good money. I think if I'm right, he was earning like $750,000 from Vince. $500,000, $750,000. More money than he fucking deserved, in all honesty. Especially guys like Bret Hart and others that were way, way better. But nevertheless, Nash, Bret, Bruce talk about, his ego. And then Mania 9 clips. Hooray! WrestleMania 9. It featured various people in togas and Hulk Hogan holding the company hostage. And for that, Vince McMahon will go to hell. Mania 9. One of, if not the worst Mania of all time, depending on your opinions. Hogan's exit necessitated the switch from the narcissist. Can't fucking help it, I'm sorry. To Made in the USA Lex Luger. Anyway, so basically, God damn it. I remember watching, I'm going to just explain something here really quickly. I remember watching this at age 12. That's how long I've been watching wrestling. I've actually been watching wrestling since 1985. I remember seeing Lex briefly in WCW and then seeing him show up on WWE television. Now, I didn't really get to see much of the World Bodybuilding Federation because it was absolutely kind of shit, but when he showed up, I was like, okay. I didn't really care for this guy in WCW. Again, fresh eyes looking back, his U.S. title run was pretty good. But goddamn, became Made in the USA Lex Luger, and it was ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. Stars and stripes and blue jeans and hoops with the fur, and the whole club was looking at her. Wait, no, that's not right. Gotta step up these references. He became the Made in the USA Lex Luger. He was the guy. He was the person that was going to replace Hulk Hogan. Because Hulk Hogan won the WWF Championship and then went to New Japan and competed for the IWGP Championship. Said, this is a trinket. Lost it back to Yokozuna, who should have never lost the championship to begin with. Or, at the very least, Bret Hart should have won it there. Bret Hart should have lost it. Bret Hart should have retained there. Lost it to Yokozuna. Maybe a King of the Ring. But then again, that would have taken away Bret's King of the Ring win. I mean, I guess it all worked out in the end, but it did also stunt the company for a year because Hogan was all about Hogan, brother. And then they show interview footage of people. It was a hip toss, McMahon, but no. Vladimir, the buff guy with the glasses and just always smiling and everything. They did a documentary about him. This WWE superfan, this wrestling superfan, because he was at WCW shows. Why has that documentary not been released? Seriously. I mean, I never met the guy, but the guy always seemed happy, and if they were willing to do this biography, fucking release it. Hell. Show it. Show pieces of it, like something about WrestleMania 1 and how Vladimir was there. I don't know. Anyway, it was cool to see him, just briefly. And then Lex Express. And Lex was just all upset because he had to be on a bus. He got this friggin'... Yeah, it might have been uncomfortable sleeping on a goddamn bus, but he was still getting a monster goddamn rocket push beyond his skills. While other people were basically having to scrape fly and drive and everything and do all this shit. But he's getting a bus. Whatever happened to the Lex Express, by the way? Ran on an ego, protein powder, and body oil. And also gas, even though Lex was off the gas at that point. So... Lex was a full-on dick about it. That's the one thing I did enjoy, is they showed how much of a dick he was, and he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to do this stuff. He's cranky. And look, I'm sure that being the top guy comes with a whole lot of, while it comes with perks, it comes with a lot of work. And this was the thing that Vince should have noticed and should have been able to see beyond the body, is Lex wasn't meant to be the top guy, at least as a face. Had he been a heel, it would have been something, maybe not as Narcissus, but as Lex Luger, that could have worked. Narcissus, I just can't help it. God damn it, Bobby Heenan. Rest in peace, Bobby Heenan. But Bruce, Cornette, Brett, they all talk about, well, he wasn't ready. He wasn't meant to be the guy. It wasn't going to work. The outtakes where Lex kept screwing this shit up. And Todd Pettingill's sighting. I like Todd. Seemed like a nice guy. Just Todd was always boisterous. Him and Sean Mooney. Who? So anyway, SummerSlam 1993. He wins by a countout, and then they drop balloons, confetti, and all that stuff, and they celebrate like he won the title or the presidency, or he saved Earth from aliens. But he didn't win the championship, and even the crowd, and look back on it. You can look, after a minute, people are like, wait a minute. He didn't win the title. What the fuck? That's when the fans turned on him. Even though he was still getting reactions, the fans were starting to turn because they were realizing, hey, wait a second. We don't need another Hulk Hogan. We have Brett. And Brett's better. A lot better. Fucking hell, Brett's a whole lot better. But, yeah, Vince went with Brett instead. And then he slid further down the card. He was in mid-card feuds, even though he's still featured. He went back to WCW. Bischoff offered him $150,000. Sting basically got him, to agree to Bischoff to agree to talk to Lex. It was $150,000, which was in comparison to the $750,000 he had before he left WCW, or when he left WCW. It was a serious downgrade because he was making, I'd say, if not $750,000 in WWE, at least $500,000. There's no way he wasn't. Maybe in '95, people's money were being cut because, well, we're taking the water cooler. Damn it, I lost $6 million out of my ass, pal. Ha ha ha. So, then he shows up on the debut Nitro, right after being at live events for WWE at the end of August 95. The debut episode of Nitro was September 4th, 1995. And then shows up during Flair versus Sting. He seemed more motivated to do stuff and everything, even though they flip-flopped him from tween. He was a pseudo-face. He was battled with Hogan at Fall Brawl 95, turned heel at Halloween Havoc 95, that's the Yeti, and all that. And then he was tag team champions with Sting while being the TV champion. And then he started a grassroots thing where he really, really grew. The Giant talks about how Luger helped him when Luger was, Luger been in the same position. Giant had gotten a big push, and Lex helped guide him through that by telling him, just don't worry. Who cares what people think about you? You're better than they are. That's probably what he said. But August 4th, 1997, they skipped over a lot of this shit. Held the world title for 5 days, but they're standing in Detroit. And then from there, yeah, he won the title for 5 days, by the way, because Road Wild 97 was on a Saturday. Then after that, the pills and the party and all that stuff and everything, and how the relationship with Miss Elizabeth started sometime in 1998. He'd been married to his wife Peggy for a while by now. And he had two properties. He had a townhouse, and then he also had the property with his wife. But they were across town, so he could just go do this stuff, and his wife didn't know. His wife probably did know, but whatever. So he was married, she was married. She had not been, they tried to make it seem like, oh, she had, divorced Randy recently and then gotten married. They actually separated in 1992, by the way. Just want to say that. And 2001, like 2001, that was the end of his full-time run and everything. And more money, more booze, more pills. And then, how his ex left him. God, Lex, maybe you shouldn't have fucking... Plenty of wrestlers have cheated on their wives, cheated on their significant others. I'm not saying that makes it okay. But you have to go with the consequences of your actions. And, he was in a ton of dark times and everything with drunkenness and domestic violence. Even though Liz didn't want him to go to jail, he still fucking hit her. Then the ill-fated 911 call on May 1st, 2003. You listen to the audio. Yes, in a panic situation like that, you wouldn't quite know what to do. you would try to make sure that somebody that you claim to love would actually be safe. But Lex didn't want to do that because Lex knew what he did. Lex knew. Am I saying that Liz was an adult? Liz was an adult. Liz, at the end of the day, did, and this is not victim blaming, she did choose to participate, taking drugs, alcohol, this kind of stuff, and whatever. So people make decisions like that. Nobody deserves to have, their partner, whether they're married, whether they're not married, somebody they're sleeping, it doesn't matter. Nobody deserves to be taken advantage of and hit like that, abused mentally, physically, and stuff like that. And also, Lex fucking knew. And Lex knew that he basically got away with watching her die because he was a coward and a goddamn piece of shit and a goddamn stupid ass son of a bitch. A guy that never fucking deserved the goddamn push that he got. But no, he's gonna let Miss Elizabeth fucking die in front of him. You could have gotten help, Lex, and you didn't. You could have gotten help for your significant other, and you didn't. Somebody you claim to love, and you have paid for it ever since. You haven't paid nearly enough because she's gone and you're still here. But unfortunately, Liz passed away. What we got to deal with Lex now? We got Lex as Gary Sinise in Forrest Gump, except Gary Sinise actually served in war, actually did, that character actually did something. What we got with Lex? Oh, he's a motivational speaker. He's all this kind of stuff and everything. He's still somebody that got away with fucking murder, at least an accessory to it. And I'm fucking pissed the fuck off. As a human being, I'm pissed the fuck off that Lex is still fucking here. You can save your goddamn being saved by Christ and all that bullshit and everything. Because somebody, and I don't remember who sent me excerpts of his biography. But he basically railed against Liz. Called her all kinds of things and everything. Took no personal responsibility. Oh, but he loved her. Clearly he fucking didn't. He thinks he did. But all he proved was that he was only out for himself. And Liz suffered for it. Liz paid the ultimate price for it. Yes, she participated in that stuff, but she didn't ask to be abused. Nobody ever deserves to be abused. And Lex knew what the fuck he did. And Lex will burn in hell for what he did. No amount of saving will fucking do that for Lex. This is fucking revolting that he's still here. But oh, his life is over. And Sting talking about how Lex suffered a whole bunch. Well, Sting's also been saved, but Sting at least seems to be wanting to get back to wrestling. Bischoff blamed Lex for the longest time. He still should. You can hold a grudge, folks. It doesn't fucking hurt. But footage of Lex in an indie show in 2005, and he just couldn't move anymore. They skipped over his TNA, his brief, TNA stint in 2003, mere months after Liz had died. At his hands, by the way. At his hands. Couldn't do anything. Couldn't do it. That 911 call. Seriously, fucking listen to it. But then he got saved and all this stuff and all this religious bullshit. Suffers the neck issues, a spinal stroke, whatever the fuck it is. And now, even though he sort of has the use of his legs, he really doesn't have a leg to stand on. Oh, such a shame. Such a shame for a guy that had millions of dollars and had this great body and everything and thought everybody loved him and had this big ego. And led to the murder of a woman, and now he suddenly has issues getting around. Oh, I feel so bad for Lex Luger. Lex Luger knew what the fuck he did. And he can talk about being a mentor, he can talk about being all this, and being all happy and everything and stuff like that, and hearing people defend him. They got the right to say what they fucking want. You got the right to say what you fucking want. He knew what the fuck he did. He knew. He still does. To me, he's no better than Jimmy Snuka. Fuck Jimmy Snuka, by the way. I'm glad he's dead. So yeah, I mean, hey, it ends where Lex is all happy and everything, and he's saved. So yeah, I'm pretty certain this review probably won't turn out well for me, but I don't really care. I'm just a fan. That's it. Just a fucking fan with opinions. So anyway, I don't remember what next week's episode is. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.